Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Batra. We are up to Perek Bet Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'elu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbai, Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Chana ben Miriam, Sason ben Rain, Yoshua ben Shifra, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, and Avdi ben Chaim Nechaim, V'derefua Shelemav, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betoch Shachole Israel, and Nachlama Merav ben Amin, Od Zion Chai ben Dvorah. The Mishnah teaches two restrictions that have to do with ladders. Marchikin et sulam min hashovach 4 amot. One must distance his ladder 4 amot from his neighbor's dovkat. Kedesh lo tikpotz anemiyah, so that a marten, a small weasel-like animal, will not be able to jump from the ladder into the dovkat and kill the doves. Meaning, if Reuven's neighbor Shimon has a dovkat on his own land, near the wall between the two properties, Reuven may not place a ladder on his side of the wall within 4 amot of the dovkat. If the ladder is within 4 amot of the dovkat, the marten can spring from the ladder directly into the dovkat and kill the doves. Although the marten does not belong to Reuven, by providing a direct route for such a predator to injure his neighbor's doves, he is considered to be damaging the doves directly. However, he may place the ladder on the wall if it is more than 4 amot away from the dovkat, although the marten could still jump from the ladder onto the wall and run along the wall until it can spring to the dovkat. Since the route is not a direct one, placing the ladder farther away is not considered direct damage, and the Tana of this Mishnah therefore permits it. And one must distance his wall 4 amot from his neighbor's gutter, so that his neighbor will have room to put up a ladder when necessary to clean his gutter. The gutter is a large open pipe that runs along the edge of the neighbor's roof to collect the rain that runs down the roof, and it is close to the boundary between the two properties. If Reuven wishes to build a wall parallel to the gutter of his neighbor's roof, he must build the wall at least 4 amot from the gutter, so that if the gutter becomes clogged with dirt or pebbles and the water cannot flow freely, Shimon will have enough room to place a ladder on Reuven's property and climb up to clean out his gutter. This right is acquired by Shimon as soon as he puts up his gutter if Reuven does not protest, as the Rambam writes in Hilchot Shchenim, chapter 9, halacha 8. The Gemara on page 22b in Batra notes that Shimon would have to distance his wall 4 amot from the wall of Reuven's house in any event, because of the ruling taught in the previous Mishnah, which requires that 4 amot be left between walls, so that people will walk there and pack down the ground. Here the Mishnah teaches that even if the edge of the roof extends past the wall of the house, so that there is room to walk next to the wall under the roof's edge, 4 amot must be left starting from the gutter to make room for a ladder. The Mishnah, having mentioned a dovkat, discusses restrictions that apply with respect to keeping a dovkat at one's property. Marchikin et hashovach mineh 50 amah. One must distance a dovkat at least 50 amot from the nearest city. V'lo yaseh adam shovach betoch shelo, and a person may not make a dovkat even within his own property. Elim ken yesh lo 50 amah l'chol ruach, unless he has 50 amot of empty space in all directions surrounding it. Doves flying out of their dovkat are constantly looking for food, but they will generally eat their fill within the first 50 amot of their flight. Therefore, they must be kept at least 50 amot away from the nearest city, so they will not eat grain that the city's residents spread upon their roofs to dry. And they must be kept 50 amot away from a neighbor's property, so they will not eat the grain that is in his field. Another Tana rules that even more space is necessary. Rabbi Yehuda says, Betar ba'at kurin melo sheger ayona. He must leave an area of 4 kol, that is 1 kol, 274 amot in every direction, for this is the extent of the flight of a dove. Rabbi Yehuda maintains that although doves usually eat their fill within 50 amot, that is not always the case. Therefore, one must place his dovkat so that the dove's flight, 274 amot, will not extend beyond his property. A bet kol is a measure of area. A square bet kol measures about 274 amot on each side. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the dovkat must be placed in the center of a circle that measures at least 274 amot in every direction. And the Rav tells us that Rabbi Yehuda does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah ends by teaching an exception to the above rules. But if he bought a parcel of land that already contained a dovkat, even if the land measures only a quarter kav, this is a square that measures about 10 amot on each side, it retains its status, meaning he may keep the dovkat in place, even though he does not own the required empty space around it. Since the seller already had the dovkat there, we allowed the buyer to claim that obviously the seller must have been granted permission from the neighbors to place his doves there. Now this ruling follows the general principle that ta'anina lelokeach, we advance a claim to support the position of a buyer, meaning rather than assume that the seller had placed the doves illegally, the court will assume for the benefit of the buyer that the seller had the legal right to place them there, even if they do not know this to be the case. In the first case of the Mishnah, where a dovecot was situated within 4 amot of the neighbor's wall, the owner of the dovecot had either obtained permission to place it there or bought the land with the dovecot already in place. And that is an of Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav discusses the case of one who finds a lost dove. The laws of found objects appear in the 2nd chapter of Masechet Bava Metzia. The Mishnah deals with the law of a found dove here because doves were mentioned in the previous Mishnah, and also because this law involves a distance of 50 amot, as do the prior Mishnah and the 3 Mishnayot that follow. Nipul animtza betoch 50 amah. If a young dove, now the word nipul refers to a young dove that cannot yet fly, which travels by hopping along. If a young dove is found within 50 amot of a dovecot, shel bal hashavach, it belongs to the owner of the dovecot. A young dove will not go farther than 50 amot away from its home nest. Therefore, if it is found within 50 amot of a dovecot, we assume that it came from there and it must be returned to the dovecot's owner. Chutz me-50 amah, but if it is found farther than 50 amot from the dovecot, shel motz'o, it belongs to the one who found it. Since it was farther than 50 amot from the dovecot, it could not have come from there. Rather, it must have been dropped by a passing traveler, in which case the finder may keep it. The finder may keep it because the dove usually has no unique identification marks that would allow it to be claimed by its owner. When the dove is found within 50 amot of a dovecot, however, we presume that it came from there rather than from a traveler, since that is the simpler explanation of the dove's presence. Nimtza ben shnei shovachot. If it is found between 2 dovecots that belong to different owners, and it was within 50 amot of both dovecots, karov lazeh shelo, then if it is nearer to this one, it is his, it belongs to the owner of that dovecot. Karov lazeh shelo, and if it was nearer to the other one, it is his. We assume that the dove came from the nearest dovecot. Mechetza al mechetza, if it was found exactly halfway between the 2 dovecots, Shneim yachaloku, the 2 owners divide its value. We assume that the dove came from one of the 2 dovecots, but since it is impossible to determine which one, it is divided equally between the 2 owners. These laws apply only if the 2 dovecots contain the same number of doves. However, if one of the dovecots has more doves than the other, we follow the majority and assume that the dove came from the larger dovecot, even if it was found closer to the smaller one, as long as it was found within 50 amot of both. And that is an Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.